Now, the war in Ukraine has taken new turn of events lately. Ukraine has upped the stakes in the ongoing battle by attacking the Russian city of Luhansk. Ukrainian troops have also advanced near Bakhmut. However, Russia says that its forces are still pushing inside the frontline city of Bakhmut. The question here is, what exactly is happening in Bakhmut and who is actually winning the war in Ukraine? For more on this, we are now being joined by Professor WION, who is a professor of international politics at the University of Birmingham. Thank you so much for joining us on WION, Professor.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, for starters, help us understand as to what is actually happening in Bakhmut. The reports of a Russian withdrawal in the area, with Kyiv claiming that its forces have regained at least a kilometer of the territory in Bakhmut.
Yes, even the Russian Ministry of Defense have said that they have withdrawn to defensive positions, to better defensive positions. So they are accepting what Ukraine has said, that Ukraine has taken 2 kilometers of territory and inflicted heavy losses on Russian forces there. What's happening is that Ukraine is attacking on the flanks on either side, north and south, of Bakhmut, and pushing the Russians back. This is symbolically important for them because the Russian offensive was to try and take Bakhmut, and they've put a huge amount of resources, men and material, into taking this city. And here we find that they haven't even been able to take this relatively small town in the Donbass area, let alone all the area that they claim to have annexed as part of now Russian sovereign territory. So it's important symbolically, and it's important also an indication of the infighting between the mercenary forces of the Wagner group and the regular soldiers, the Wagner group complaining that they haven't been given enough support and enough ammunition by the regular Russian military.
Right, Professor, you mentioned about the infighting within the Russian troops and the Wagner chief, Prigozhin. But I was just coming to that. There are also contrasting reports regarding the Russian troops in Bakhmut. While on one hand, Russia's Wagner group chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, claims that the Russian troops are fleeing Bakhmut. While on the other hand, Russia's defense ministry says that its troops are actually making gains in Bakhmut. So what is actually happening on ground zero?
Well, it's very difficult to tell, I think. I mean, both people are making statements for their own purposes. And we know that Russia has consistently lied in everything it said. It's denied it was going to go to war and invade Ukraine in the first place. It denied that it was trying to and take territory across the whole country, and it's denied repeated claims of atrocities and war crimes and the use of sexual violence as a tool of war, despite the multiple evidence from the UN that is the case. So everything that they say has to be taken with a huge pinch of salt, because they are proven liars when it comes to what they say about the war and being self-serving. It's also interesting, of course, that the Wagner group are vying for position in the politics of what comes after Putin. So Prigozhin is someone who wants to be the leader in Russia, and he's criticizing the establishment. He's criticized Putin. He's criticized the defense ministry. And therefore, what you're seeing is a very fratricidal infighting amongst the Russians, and the evidence on the ground is that they're losing ground, and there's a blame game going on as to why it is that the Russian forces are failing and dying in the numbers that they are.
Absolutely, Professor. Amidst this blame game that's happening between the Russian Defense Ministry, Putin, and the Wagner chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, Ukraine has also attacked the Russian city of Luhansk. Do you think that the Ukraine's counteroffensive has already begun?
I think what we're seeing is the start of the counteroffensive, and the counteroffensive will come in many parts. Before a major push is launched, there's what's called shaping operations, whereby the attacking side will try to destroy important targets near the front line or behind the front lines. Things like oil dumps, ammunition stores, rail junctions, and also it will try to probe and keep the Russians guessing as to where that attack will come. So you can expect along that huge border inside Ukraine, where the Russians have invaded, that there will be various actions by the Ukrainians to actually keep the Russians guessing where the main attack will come. It will be preparing the ground by destroying logistics, and there will be also perhaps 2 or 3 points where the Ukrainians push. The reports from Bakhmut suggest that actually the Ukrainians have been using 40 tanks to actually attack on the flanks there. That's by no means the tanks that they now have in their armory, but it's a way of probing and pushing on one part of that front to actually persuade the Russians to put troops along the whole line and therefore not concentrate where the attack will eventually come. So yes, the counteroffensive is beginning in various forms. It's not yet the full assault of 12 brigades of tanks that Ukraine has at its disposal. That may take more weeks to come.
Right, Professor. Now with Ukraine gaining momentum in the Bakhmut area and with it also attacking Russian city of Luhansk, do you think that Ukraine's strategy in the ongoing battle has become sort of more offensive than defensive?
Yes, I mean both sides are doing things that can be described as offensive. The Russians are firing very long-range missiles from the Black Sea and from aircraft at cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles, trying to destroy Ukrainian infrastructure, destroying Ukrainian cities. A lot of these, of course, are shot down, but they have stepped up the range and pace and number of missiles that they're firing at Ukraine, and that's partly a recognition that they want to be seen to be doing something, given their failure to take Bakhmut and elsewhere, and also actually in trying to disrupt the Ukrainian offensive by attacking command posts. But the Ukrainians are clearly in a position now whereby they've saved up and they've received large stocks of ammunition and large stocks of modern Western equipment, including artillery pieces and armored fighting vehicles and tanks. And so, yes, they are in a position now, once the weather improves and the ground hardens and the mud solidifies, to be in a position to actually take the fight to Russia and try and kick the Russians out of their country, or at least parts of their country.
Absolutely, Professor. Now, UK has also become one of the first countries to deliver Kyiv with long-range Storm Shadow cruise missiles. Help us understand as to how are the game-changer missiles helping Ukraine win the battle?
Well, these systems give Ukraine longer range, so they can attack targets deep behind the front line. And they are designed to attack command centers, command bunkers. They can destroy deep underground bunkers. They can attack warships, so they potentially could attack the Sevastopol naval port. Interestingly, the Russians have moved all their submarines out of the port in anticipation of that port being attacked. They could attack ships at sea. They can attack bridges or big stocks of munitions and oil supplies. So what they do is they actually put all targets in Ukraine, in the Crimea region at risk, which they haven't been up to now. And they also give the capacity to actually disrupt deep back into the areas of the Donetsk territory. What the UK has said, however, is that they should not be used and will not be used to attack Russia itself. This is an incremental escalation in the war for Britain to supply these weapon systems, and the conditions that they come with is you can't attack Russia with them, only the Russian forces in occupied Ukraine.
Right, Professor. My last question to you before we let you go, it's a long, short question, but who do you think is actually winning the ongoing war?
The fact that both sides are not willing to enter into serious negotiations demonstrates that both sides think that they have an advantage, and both sides think there's advantage to carry on fighting for the months ahead. it's without question that Ukraine is in a much better position now with the training, with the sense of will to liberate their country, and with the Western equipment they have received. So they feel confident that they can make gains against the Russians. The Russians, for their part, a much bigger country with a huge population and a huge stock of weapons, and a willingness to actually throw waves of Russian soldiers at the Ukrainians, no matter what the casualties, on the calculation that we've got many more young men who we're prepared to let die for this war, and therefore they feel that actually in the long term that the sheer weight of numbers will mean that they will win. So I think what that tells us is at this stage it's too difficult to call who will win. Ask me in a month's time.
Well, absolutely. But thank you so much for joining us on WION, Professor, and sharing your insights with us. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.